Another day on the Saleen here, and I'm hoping to get the dash and center console put back into place, which means the interior, everything else is coming together really nice here. You can see the main bracket with the alternators laying down here on the ground, and right here what you see are all brand new threads. Jerry made this bolt. There is a difference between PTFE line and AN line. That's where we're at, guys, getting closer. What else do I have to do? I don't know. Another day on the Saleen here, and trying to come up with what I'm going to do with the fuel pressure regulator on this guy. I don't want to just drill into random spots on this car. And here is the FTR here, Trick Flow by Aeromotive. So I had actually the black GT that I had. It was mounted somewhere, I think right here, and then they had the MSD vertically mounted here, and then there was still room for that Anderson power pipe. So I'm thinking I'm gonna try and maybe, cut it right in the center and maybe try and go right here. And I don't know, I could maybe do a bracket here or put it in the center. So what I'm thinking of is coming up with an idea to mock up a bracket. That's why I have this piece of wood here, and maybe bolt something across here. I thought to myself, you know what, I'll come over to this cold air kit that I have. And they always come with these for the mass air flow meter mounting. So wondering, because they're actually already threaded down pretty good. So I'm wondering if I can't find a way to do something with these. Another day on the Saleen here, and I'm hoping to get the dash and center console put back into place, which means the interior is pretty much going to be done. So the one thing that I was waiting on after doing the heater core and evaporator core and getting the heater box back in was to get the clutch cable and throttle cable in. And I noticed that his original throttle cable, the sheathing was, there's probably like a good 6-inch area that was missing. So I got a brand new cable here and got it installed, because it is way easier to install that cable with the dash out. And the main reason for that is quite a number of people probably never reinstall, just because it is such a pain in the ass. So when your dash is out, you actually do have access. And try and show you guys this. See if I can get this light shined in there. There we go. So we can see there is the throttle pedal, and the cable is clipped into the throttle pedal. And you can see there's firewall padding here, and the metal housing of the throttle cable. So what I'm going to do now is install this guy, and it's sort of like a Chinese finger trap. Once you push that metal through there, this grips onto it and doesn't want to let go. So if you can imagine, if the dash was here, you'd be in for a pretty hard time trying to get this clip on. But because the dash is not in here, you literally put the slit over the cable. And I have done this with the dash in, folks, so it's not impossible, but, and then there you go, you just kind of push it on. You just want to make sure you got metal exposed, and if you've got something long and pointy, long screwdriver, or in my case, a long pry bar, you can just kind of give it a push on one side, nice and smoothly, which it is, and that's it. All right, so now it's going to be time to snake the dash back through. Sitting right there, we'll get the dash bolted back into place. And actually, before we do that, I am going to do my few little tips and tricks with the kill mat to make sure that we reduce as much possible noise and rattles as possible. So I will be sticking some kill mat in some strategic places as I normally do, and I'll pass the dash back up and through here and we'll get it reinstalled. So one other thing, if you're wondering why you only ever get AC out of the top vents and not through these guys, even though you're turning the dial and trying to do it, well, chances are your dash has been out. And if you follow this yellow wire off the back of the heater controls here, it should probably be dangling somewhere like this because someone forgot to put it back up on the solenoid on the back of the heater box. So you gotta look way up there and you gotta get that on there. And I should have stuck it on when the dash wasn't in, but I'll get it. All the dash and the console back in here, just a few little bits to do. Everything else is coming together really nice here. Just gotta get the glove box in, and I'm gonna leave kind of this stuff the way that it is for now, because I want to get LED bulbs in the climate controls. I need to get an LED bulb here for the glove box. Apparently there's already been LED bulbs installed in the cluster, so that should be fine. Hazard switch connector, so that's kind of a classic issue, so I'm gonna have to get these guys pinned back in where they belong here and get that all sorted out. But other than that, everything is pretty much in a really good state here. I'll go ahead and put the trim piece back on the top of the dash area, got the column all bolted up nice and tight, and I should be able to put some power to the terminals, and then that way kind of go through and see, make sure that all the power options are working, all the lights are working, so on and so forth. Because after that, I need to get to testing and connecting for the Terminator X, which is all kind of laid out here. You know, I'm gonna have quite a bit of wiring to do. I noticed that I didn't have the oil pressure sending unit. I did not have the map sensor, and you can see I actually did some custom work here with the factory bracket. I actually flipped it backwards. The vacuum line's gonna come off the backside here, and I gotta redo this connector for the one that came in the kit so that it'll actually plug into the map sensor there. What else do I have to do? Finish the fuel lines, and you can see I got a nice little mock-up plate here, these IKEA trim pieces. Of course, it's going to end up getting painted either black or body color, and that should work out quite nice. I just want to make sure I get all my fittings here so I can get everything mocked up and finished, so that way once the fuel lines are connected, then at that stage I can get the upper intake on. And once the upper intake is on, throttle body and stuff, bolts right on, factory-like. I got to figure out the TPS still. I got a new AccuFab spacer without the EGR, so just a straight up plate coming because we're not going to be running an EGR on this setup. So we're getting there, guys. Like, the starter can get bolted back in. I'll probably wait till I have the car on the lift. So now what I need to do is go through all the hardware for the blower. So you can see the main bracket with the alternators laying down here on the ground and running this Dayco smog pump delete pulley. And the one thing about this pulley is that, I think it's this side, one of them, the bolt passes through the way that you want, and then the other one, it's just threaded on the one side, so you kind of like bolt it from the back side, and that's how they had it. However, that's not going to work in this instance because we're going to have the other plate right here, and this plate is quite an important part of the overall design here. so that way we have enough support for the supercharger. So I drilled all the way through this so I could get this bolt through, and I might need to run a shorter bolt here. So I went to TSC and I got all kinds of hardware because I was missing a bunch of bolts that actually bolt the blower to the bracket. And yeah, I'm gonna go through all this stuff and see what I need for spacers, because I'm gonna need one here and a couple other things. So once I get that all sorted and get myself organized, I'll go through with you guys exactly what I'm doing, and we'll get this all bolted up, hopefully for the last time. And damn, I keep forgetting hose clamps. I need some hose clamps for here because I want to make sure that I have this guy on and clamped before we do all the blower bracket, because it's actually really hard to access this guy once you have all that stuff in the way. That's where we're at, guys. Getting closer.
Brown Widow.
Where?
Right there.
That one?
Okay, never mind.
It's gone. Dead.
Blends in with the floor now.
All right, guys, so got all the blower bracket mounted up here. So usually you would bolt this on the head first, and then you'd put your accessories on, and then put this front plate that the blower actually mounts to. The problem that I faced is while I was chasing a whole bunch of hardware, because it was incomplete, it was just kind of mocked on the motor for the sake of mocking up, so to speak. So I had to drill through this guy on the smog pump delete so that I could get a bolt that actually went all the way through, got the proper spacer here. And apparently there's another billet version of this that is designed for a blower setup. I could not find one. So this one was here, it was already on, it was just bolted through the backside and nothing was here. So just take your drill through the aluminum, and away you go, straight through. Got the alternator all bolted on, made sure that everything was lined up pulley wise. And then I had a bolt issue for the main one that goes all the way through everything and into the cylinder head. And the bolt was it's a little tweaked. So Jerry got us a new bolt right here, which was 8 inches long, which applied the old tap and die treatment, Harbor Freight actually, and managed to successfully cut right through it. So these right here, what you see, are all brand new threads. Jerry made this bolt. He just made it.
I pick things up, I put them down.
So this guy's gonna go here, and then we got our larger bolt here, and then the smaller one here. Got all the coolant stuff all hooked up now because it's extra hard to do once this bracket's in place. So gonna go ahead now, get it in, and hopefully this side of our accessories are going to be done, which means all of our accessories will be done. I'll be able to get a wrench in there. That one, so it's the bottom configuration is, right? Because
351 versus...
if we look at the old instructions here, here's that big bolt you just created, 6.5 inches long. So see how there's only one?
Mm-hmm.
And then that's the big one in the head, the 7/16, and then that's the other 3/8. So this other hole that's in here technically doesn't exist.
Just a bit
Pookie stainless bolt in there. Give it the illusion. Oh, I got the ADCs on me.
Don't get
It's
anywhere,
on me.
Don't get anywhere near me.
As McLovin says, I think it's in. I think it's in, but I think it's bottoming out. Well, ain't that a bitch? ADCs. Well, I could cut it down more. I don't think we need to take more. I think I just need to cut more. So those sneaky buggers at Vortech, if you look at the instructions, it says 6.5. Then it says 6 3/4 with an asterisk. So I cut it down to 6 3/4. So I think I need to take it down a quarter.
So what's the point of actually having 6 3/4 notated?
I don't know. I didn't see the, that's on another page. That is,
Is it the Canadian version? Get you one of those beveling tools.
yeah, that'd be nice. Thank you for making that bolt.
I make bolt.
He makes bolts.
I make bolt.
So there we go. Thanks to Jerry's help, I've got pretty much all the accessories. Obviously now we can bolt the blower on. That's easy peasy. And from there, it's waiting on the fuel line. So, which somebody else ordered. It's coming from Canada, so we'll blame the Eskimos. So once we got the fuel line, can wrap up the fuel rails, and from there it's going to be Terminator X wiring, getting that all sorted, because everything else is pretty much just plug and play. Bolting an intake on and throttle body is going to be pretty straightforward. Just want to make sure that all this wiring's good, fuel rails are good, and then we'll go from there. So as you can see, we got some nice, beautiful, I should say, 18-inch sterns that are going to be going on the 421 car. And maybe the old sterns that are on it might end up on the clone here. We'll see. Now, one thing that I wanted to point out, main difference between how those wheels look and how these wheels look. In fact, it's not about these two, because technically that's a 17-inch wheel and this is an 18-inch wheel. But if we take this 17-inch wheel, right, and we compare it to the 17-inch wheel that's sitting on my wheel wall there, you might ask yourself, why does that 17 look that much better? And it might be hard to tell because it's not next to the car, but I'm telling you, this wheel looks better than the wheel that's on that car there. And the reason why it looks better is because the center of this one, this is a 16-inch center, 17-inch wheel, okay? And this is a reverse lip, which means it doesn't have like that step like you can see on this Oz wheel up here. So that being a 16-inch face on a 17-inch wheel is a lot nicer than this 15-inch face that's on a 17-inch wheel. So that's right, we're on the wheel that I showed you before. The diameter from here to here was 16 inches, and then the actual barrel made up the extra inch, where in this case, the barrel is actually making up 2 inches. So this is actually a double step wheel, taking us from a 15-inch center up to what would have been a 16-inch wheel, which is now a 17-inch wheel, right? So there's a hump here and a hump there. Whereas the reverse face, or the reverse lip, only has the one step. Now, these guys over here, this is a 16-inch face as well, and this is stepped in 2 ways, and this is actually double step too, but it's double stepped with the reverse lip, which I think looks a lot better because it hides that extra bump, so it's not like hump, and then that outer lip on the edge, which is also very privy. Usually they get curved and they get rashed. So if I were to step my 17s that are on the wall over there, they would ultimately go and be stepped to look like this. But I just wanted to share that with you guys. Super nice wheels. You can see they are staggered, 8s and 9s. I'm not 100% sure. We got 235s front and 265s rear. So perfect sizes. If you don't have any of your fenders or quarters rolled, they will fit. Shouldn't rub as long as those offsets are right. So now that we've talked about some wheels, let's talk about these fuel lines. So where we left off, I ultimately was playing around with the braided lines that came in the Trick Flow kit and was putting on some of these AN fittings. Well, the rest of my fuel line came in that I had got that I wanted to route from the tank to the front, and I ultimately went with PTFE, and not even thinking there is a difference between PTFE line and AN line. So although the fittings of where things screw on in terms of the male and the female sides of these adapters between AN and PTFE are the same. The hose side that actually grips onto the hose is not the same. And the reason for that is that PTFE line, the outer diameter is actually narrower than an AN line. So I know that this hose is black, so it's gonna look skinnier by default, but this outer diameter is less than this. And the nylon outside is nicer to work with versus the abrasiveness of the, braided steel. So ultimately, this is smaller, which is easier to work with. It's softer, which is nicer to work with, but the fittings are different. So here's a fitting for a PTFE line. See this little ferrule or ferrule or whatever you want to call it? This is pretty much the only difference. So what needs to happen is you ultimately, once you've cut your line, using masking tape, you cut this line the exact same way, but then you need to wedge this down in between the outer shielding and the nylon tubing that's on the inside. And then what happens is that once you slide this guy in like so, and then you tighten the fitting on, it's going to push down, clamp and grip and do everything in the same way that your AN fitting would. I started getting involved because I got my kit from Hot Rod Fuel Hose, actually a Canadian company, and really nice products. They give you a bunch of fittings when you buy the kit. The only thing is I don't have enough fittings. So I've done my first return line here off this fuel rail going down and up to the regulator on this side. I've already got this line cut. This one's going to go to the midpoint of this fuel rail here. So I need a 90 coming down there, and this will get routed down, up and around, over, and another 90 here. So I'm going to run over to the commercial shop now and go steal 2 of Jerry's 90-degree fittings. And I need to stop by Byron's because working on lines, I was looking at the oil feed line for the blower, which is this guy right here. And if you look, you can see this guy has been pinched, or kinked rather, right there, and I know what happened. Somebody put this right in between the thermostat housing and the bolt for the tensioner and pinch this. Now, maybe it's okay, but I don't want to take any chances. And because now everything else is going black, I've got some line right here and some hose with some fittings that I've already got marked up on where they need to be crimped. And Byron's got the crimper, so I'm gonna go get that crimped up. And I got a 90-degree fitting down here because, well, we need the T-fitting to go off the oil sending stick, if you will. And that's gonna get branched off to give us our reading for our oil pressure sensor, which is this guy right here. And then also feed oil to our blower. So it's a busy day playing with lines. And I'm going to get the rest of these lines and these fittings all done up pretty much that same way that the AN lines were. And once we get the fuel line situation sorted out in here, then ultimately the intakes can go on, and the upper intakes, throttle body and everything else. Then I'll go over the Terminator X wiring, because that'll sort of be the next thing on the list, because I've had to do a few things, such as change the TPS connector to the Ron Francis pigtail here so we can run the factory style there. And we'll talk about the IAC, the idle air control valve. This is a 2-wire. I think I'm going to convert to a 4-wire, but we'll get to that in a minute. You can see I've got one of the dash 8 lines done, the main lines back here. And I've got a Y block. So before I make this video a wrap, I'm going to show you guys how to put an end on here on one of these braided lines. So this actually came with this duct tape on the end. I'm just going to go ahead and remove that real quick and throw on some yellow masking tape. So be really careful once you've cut this, and you want to make sure that you don't have any sharp ends or burrs of any sort sticking out. And from there, we're gonna go ahead and grab our fitting and get that on. So you just unthread this from here. And you can see how this is tapered. Ultimately, this is gonna end up going down into the hose, and it's going to expand as you thread it on, ultimately creating the pressure that you want. So you can see I twisted it pretty much all the way down to where the tape is. You know, give it a tap, and at that point you can't even see the tape anymore. And we will tape up our anodized fitting. So we'll tape that up, and then we'll tape this guy up. And there's fancy wrenches for this. I actually have one courtesy of Jerry at the shop, but it's at the shop, at the commercial shop. And pretty much all we're gonna do now, and I've got that really far in there. So I'm actually gonna spray a little bit of WD-40 on there. Lube it up a bit. There we go. Got it started. And then you're just gonna put a wrench on both sides, or if you have a vise, that would work a lot better. But because I'm out here showing you guys real time, I'm gonna fight it. And you're just gonna thread it down. Wipe your fitting down. You can see, oh, still got tape on there. Tape and goo from all the pressure. After you've done all your fittings, make sure you blow the lines out, make sure that there's no debris or anything else in there. But that's how you get your braided line fitting installed.